Hi everybody, tonight we're going to be talking about lesson 11.3 for advanced math on solving inequalities using multiplication or division. So at the first top of your page here, you're going to see the key idea, which is the multiplication and division properties of inequalities. So this is talking about the first set of examples, or case one. So when you multiply or divide each side of an inequality by the same positive number, the inequality remains true. So this is just saying you use your inverse operations to multiply or divide by a positive number, and it's going to remain true on both sides. So let's take a look at the first three examples here. So this first one, n is being divided by 3. The opposite of dividing is to multiply, and we should be using parentheses on the outside to show multiplication. So multiplying and dividing will cancel. So n is less than 1 times 3 is 3. So n is less than 3. So down here on your number line, you can label your numbers. Less than gets an open circle and shading to the left. Now here on number 2, m is being divided by 10. So the inverse is to multiply. So multiplying by 10 on each side. Again, using those parentheses. Dividing by 10 and multiplying by 10 cancels. 10 times negative 0.5. Positive times a negative is negative. 10 times 0.5 is 5. So here we have negative 5 is less than or equal to m. Now keep in mind when we have the variable on the right-hand side, we want to rewrite everything by flipping it. So keep that inequality sign facing the variable. So now we can go through and label our number line. M is greater than or equal to, so that would use a closed circle. And if it could be greater than, we shade to the right. Now, on this one we have negative 3 is greater than 2/3 p. The opposite of multiplying by 2/3 would be to divide. But since we can't divide by a fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal. And the reciprocal is simply the fraction flipped upside down. Negative 3 goes over 1. So 2/3 multiplied by 3/2 cancels. 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. 2 times 1 is 2. Now we can reduce this. 9 divided by 2 is 4 and 1 left over. And again, the variable's on the right side, so we want to rewrite it. We can go ahead and label our number line. P is less than negative 4/2, so open circle, shading to the left. Now notice here how each time we multiplied or divided by a positive number. Now, if you look on the next section, I want you to go ahead and try numbers 4 through 6. Okay, now looking at numbers 4 through 6, 4 and b are being multiplied. The opposite of multiplying is dividing, so we can divide by 4 on both sides. So we have b is greater than or equal to 2/4, which is equal to 1/2. So when we go to label our number line, we're going to use a closed circle since it can be greater than or equal to, and greater than shades to the right. Now on this next one, 12k is saying 12 times k. The opposite is to divide. So k is less than or equal to negative divided by a positive is a negative. 24 by 12 is 2. So again, we can label our number lines. Less than or equal to gets a closed circle. Less than shades to the left. Here we have negative 15 is less than 2.5q. So dividing by 2.5 on both sides. Again, a negative divided by a positive is a negative. 15 divided by 2.5 is 6. Remember that when the variable's on the right side, we want to switch it. Keep that inequality symbol facing the variable. So q is greater than negative 6. We're going to use an open circle since it can't be equal to negative 6. Q is greater than negative 6. So shading to the right. Now notice here, each time we divided by a positive number. Now, if you look at the next key idea box, it says when you multiply or divide each side of an inequality by the same negative number, the direction of the inequality symbol must be reversed for the inequality to remain true. So if you look at these examples here, if 4 is greater than negative 6, they looks like there we are switching that inequality sign facing the other side when they divide both sides by 2 or negative 2 there. So let's take a look at some examples of these when we're talking about case 2. So let's start with numbers 7 and 8. So go ahead and give numbers 7 and 8 a try, and then we'll go ahead and look at those together. All right, as we go through these final 8 problems for 11.3, I'm going to not go over the graphing of the inequalities just because we've practiced those quite a bit already in 11.1 and 11.2, and I don't want to keep you on the video for too long. So as you finish these, then you can go back and graph those 8 problems on your own. So here, if we're looking at number 7, x is being divided by negative 3. The opposite of dividing, or the inverse of dividing by negative 3, is to multiply by negative 3. Again, we're going to use those parentheses on the outside. Negative times a negative is a positive. 4 times 3 is 12. Now, since we multiplied by a negative number, we have to flip the inequality sign. So it's going to now flip over and face the right side of the equation. So when we go to graph our solution, we would be graphing this inequality. Now the same thing for number 8. We have y is being divided by negative 2. The opposite is to multiply. Negative times a positive is a negative. 2 times a half is 1. This will cancel, and we're left with y. Now, since we multiplied by a negative, we have to flip the inequality. When that variable's on the right side, we want to rewrite it the opposite way. So flipping our terms and flipping the sign. So y is less than or equal to negative 1. Now, go ahead and try numbers 9 and 10. With number 9, instead of multiplying by 6/5, the opposite would be to divide, but since we have a fraction, we must multiply by the reciprocal. So multiplying by 5/6 on both sides. Now, positive times a negative is a negative. 5 times 12 is 60. 6 times 1 is 6. Coefficient will cancel here, so we're left with m. Now here, this one they tried to trick you. We multiplied by a positive, so we leave the inequality the same. When that inequality or that variable is on the right, we rewrite it facing the opposite direction. Negative divided by a positive is a negative. 60 divided by 6 is 10. So m is less than or equal to negative 10. Now in this last one in this section here, negative 2/5 h is less than or equal to negative 8. The reciprocal of negative 2/5 is negative 5/2. We cancel h. Negative times a negative is a positive. 8 times 5 is 40, and 1 times 2 is 2. Now here we multiplied by a negative, so we have to reverse or flip the symbol. When we do this, 40 can be divided by 2, and we get 20. So h is greater than or equal to 20. Now don't forget to go back and graph those solutions. Now looking at these last 5, they're talking about division. Sorry, the last 4 actually. We've got 4 left here. So talking about division, negative 5 times z is less than 35. Opposite of multiplying, to divide. So z, 35 divided by negative 5 is negative 7. Here we divided by a negative, so we have to flip the sign. On this one, opposite of multiplying by negative 2 is to divide by negative 2. So we have a, negative times divided by a negative is a positive. 9 divided by 2 is 4.5. Again, divided by a negative number, so we have to flip the sign. Last 2 for today. So here, coefficient 3 times n, so opposite of multiplying by 3 is to divide. Negative divided by a positive is a negative. 1.5 divided by 3 is 0.5. 3n divided by 3 is n. Again here, trying to trick you, we divided by a positive, so we leave that symbol the same. Now when that variable is on the right, we know that we need to rewrite it, flipping the inequality. So n is greater than negative 0.5. This last one here, negative 0.7 times w, opposite would be to divide. Negative divided by a negative is a positive. 4.2 divided by 0.7 is 6. This will cancel and we're left with w. We divided by a negative, so we flip the sign. So 6 is less than or equal to w. We know that we must rewrite it for the variable to be on the left. Make sure that inequality sign stays facing that variable, so w is greater than or equal to 6. Now the key thing to remember from lesson 3 is that you only flip the symbol when multiplying or dividing by a negative number.